Hey everybody, your old pal Shawn here. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how do you stand up for what you believe in while not taking the world down a path we don't want to head down. But first, just a quick reminder, if you like what we're trying to do, please like, share, follow, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you're on YouTube. Make sure to distribute this. Tell us what you think. I want to know what you think. Am I creating the right content? Is there a topic you want me to cover? Did I miss something? Please let me know. And if you're in a good position, you'd really like to help me out, please take a look at our givesendgo.com/SZP. Anything that comes in is going to help me put more time into this and increase the production quality. We have a lot of projects we'd like to do and bring you the highest quality when we do them. So without any further ado, thank you very much, and let's get started. So if you've seen the first episode, well, before that, the actual introduction to this whole movement we're creating, you understand that I consider division to be one of the bigger threats in the world. And if you watch that, you get the sense that I believe if we find ways to unify, if we can stop demonizing one another, we can head down a path of unification. We can find underlying values that we agree on. We can head in a better direction. But there's so much disagreement on major issues that are important to you. I don't know what your major issues are. For some, it's the economy. For others, animal welfare, the environment, Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia. For others, it's being pro-life or pro-choice. For others, it's about medical rights. For others, it's about freedom of speech. Whatever matters to you, whatever stands out, you can fight for it in a way, you can stand up for it in such a way that it doesn't help. And you can also stand up in such a way that helps advance your cause. And I want to help advance your cause. I don't know what you stand for. I don't even know if we agree, but that's not what matters. Underneath it all, so many of us have shared values that are just being served with different strategies and different understandings of the world. Where we're running into an issue with that is we've been told over and over again that the other side is bad, that they're terrible people, that they don't deserve to have an opinion, that they should be censored, that they should be deplatformed. And this comes from a good intention. The idea is, well, you don't want to lead people down the wrong path. If there's a set of destructive behaviors, you don't even want them to know it's an option. So if there's no one talking about it, if they're not being platformed, if these ideas aren't being encountered, then they're not going to spread. They're not going to corrupt vulnerable minds and lead people astray. And if you're not saying things that are painful or bring a sense of tension or conflict inside, then everyone's going to be happier. They're going to be able to move on with their day. The problem with this is there's so much that we don't know. Even the most informed of us, they don't even know 1% of what there is to discover in their field. And there could be insights that they're not ready to accept or ready to understand. Think about it. 100 years ago, if you told them, hey, we'll be able to communicate from across the world. We're going to have these little devices where you have access to communication with anyone in the world. You can order any product or service you want. You can get any information in the world in seconds. No one's going to believe you. That sounds like magic. But and people didn't have a framework from which to understand such technology. But you know what? Chances are you're probably watching this video or listening to it on such a device. There are so many things that people just don't have the context or the foundation to understand properly. Or maybe they're looking at an entirely different perspective. If you look at the top 1% of any field, they're talking about things that the bottom 80% probably aren't even addressing. And the reason is because they're on the cutting edge. They're encountering ideas. They're experimenting with things that aren't in textbooks, maybe haven't been published yet. Maybe they're being worked out. Maybe they have been published. Maybe there is some level of acceptance, but it takes so long for a new idea to spread through a population or a field that many people are behind. I remember one time I was speaking with a doctor. I was getting something checked out. And we were just having a casual conversation, and he wasn't even aware that there are whole other fields of medicine out there that he hadn't even heard of. Now, that doesn't make me an expert on those fields, but we were just having a conversation and he wasn't aware. Another doctor I talked to thought there was one kind of magnesium. Well, I know of 7. But he gave some kind of speech about, well, how could there be 7? There's only one element. And it's these kinds of things. I'm sorry, not element. It's just one mineral. So it's these kind of things where even people who are super informed, they can't possibly know everything. Even doctors study tremendously hard to get where they're at. But guess what? We have dozens of new studies coming out probably every day. And there's all kinds of clinical trials being run. They simply do not have the time to keep up with all the information coming. Now, I'm not saying that there's a particular view you should follow. I'm just using a practical field where, hey, they want to spend time with their families too. They're not spending every waking minute when they're not with a patient catching up on the latest literature. There is continuous education, but there's no way it can be covered. There's just millions and millions of pages of data. This is why you can walk into any bookstore, walk into the health section, and see doctors recommending entirely contradictory diets. Because there have been studies that seem to verify or give them confidence in whatever they're saying. And one will say, oh, this food will kill you. And the next one says, oh, that food will give you explosive murder cancer and your bones are going to turn into liquid. And it can be really difficult to navigate this terrain. When we're so sure and when we care a great deal about our main issues, our pet issues, it can hurt to hear other ideas sometimes because we're so identified with it. It's part of who we are. You know, imagine, say, a biologist who's been teaching something for 40 years. And then they find out that, well, some of the stuff that they were teaching is not accurate because new research. Well, it's easy to feel like you were lying to your students for 40 years and your entire career is invalidated. It would take a really constructive pivot to say, hey, the process of the scientific method is so cool that it can continuously update things and we can always learn more and there's other things to do. Now, what does this have to do with advancing our issues? Well, I remember watching a video one time and there were 3 men of color, different generations, and they were out protesting for something. I'm not entirely sure what occurred in this case, so I'm not going to speak to that. However, there was a more senior gentleman. There was a more like a guy in the middle, and then there was like a young kid. He looked early teens, as far as I could tell. And they go. The middle guy goes to the kid, and he says, "Hey, we're out here We're fighting for what matters, but it's not working. It has never worked. It's up to you to find a new way, because what we're doing is not advancing our cause. And that's what I'm speaking to today. You see, it's easy to post memes about what you like, and everyone who agrees with you is going to like it, and everyone who doesn't is going to ignore it or block it or make some snarky comment. But guess what? If you post something that your side agrees with and has no chance of catching the eyes of people on the other side, guess what? It did nothing. You're wasting your time. You might as well be talking to an empty room, because it's not reaching anybody. It's not touching people. It's not giving new experience. It's not changing minds. It's not expanding influence. If anything, it's pushing others away. We have to understand that if we want our issues to advance further, we can't keep just speaking to our audience. We can't just talk to our in-group. You know, it's like this. Imagine there's a playground full of kids after school. And there's a group off to the side, small group, they're all friends. And they say, hey, we're going to make the new rules for this playground. We're going to decide what words can be used, how to play, how to take turns on equipment, how many people should be in line, how much time everyone's allowed to do it. And we're going to impose that so that everyone gets a shot. And, you know, this is well-intentioned. And then if they start bullying people who don't follow their rules, that's not going to help the acceptance of their rules, is it? That's not going... A lot of these people don't even know the rules that their little club made up. And they're being insulted and bullied and made fun of. And some of the people who would know the rules, they're just going to resist it because it's like a top-down, authoritarian, imposed on them kind of thing. It's not rising from the ground up. If you want to make progress with your issues, you can't just keep repeating the same memes everyone says. You can't just strawman the views of every individual in the world who disagrees with you. Maybe they disagree with you. Maybe they have different information. It might be right. It might be wrong. But you're never going to be able to show them that if all you do is call them names and insult them and point to them over there and make an us versus them kind of dynamic. Because they're going to say, well, if those people are mean and they treat me like this and they treat my friends like this, why should I listen to them? They have no opinion that matters to me. I'm going to do everything they tell me not to do just to piss them off. And there's a certain amount of people who will just go with the flow because they don't want conflict. But this is no way to gain acceptance of an idea. This is no way to expand something that's important to you. I saw an argument one time where someone was saying, why would you debate somebody who has different ideas? Why would you talk casually to them? There's no point to that. Why would you try and understand them? No, these issues matter, and you have to yell at them and scream and make it and just yell at them and tell them they're terrible because this is a war. Well, that's how you get a war. And be honest, you, your friends and family, maybe you're prepared, but I'm sure there are people who you care about who aren't. You could be all impassioned as you want, but the time has come to evolve our strategies. I know you care about your issues. I care about mine. And in order to move forward, we need to build bridges. If you're only speaking to the people who already agree with you, guess what? You've done nothing. You've basically wasted your time. You gave a rah-rah meeting to a bunch of people who already like you. It's like hyping people up for a homecoming game, you know? You're playing to the crowd and not really getting anywhere. You might raise a little awareness to people who agree with you, but they didn't know some nuance of the issue. And then, at best, they might try and repeat some half-remembered thing that you said, or make a meme about how stupid everyone who disagrees is. That's not a recipe for success, I'm afraid. Right now, we're so polarized that any issue you say already has a large imprint into people. And pretty much every meme, every bit of commentary that we commonly see today is designed to basically provoke tens of millions of people. And you're not going to advance society when half of the society is pissed at you. Even if you get into power for some time, guess what? They're going to get into power one day, and that pendulum's going to swing back, and it's going to be way more destructive. You can't advance your issues through bullying. You can't advance them through threats or oppression of other people. And you might say, well, my people have been oppressed, so I'm going to oppress them. Well, that's just going to cause the pendulum to swing back and forth, and society to precariously swing over a ledge that we might fall into. And I prefer that we avoid the abyss altogether. So let's work on something. Understand that there are tons and tons of people who would like you if they had a good experience with you. If they worked with you, if you were helpful or showed them what to do, they'd like you and they'd be open to your views. Many of those people you currently disagree with now and may even demonize or dehumanize to some degree. And if you were cool, if they liked you, they might be open to hearing some of your ideas, and chances are there's more overlap than you think. But maybe the information they have about those issues is incorrect. Maybe the information they have about how best to serve those issues is different than what you've heard. Well, this is how you come together. When people try and have a discussion and they have their guards up and they're ready to defend themselves, they're in a highly stressed position. It's like prize fighting. They're anticipating conflict. They're not listening. They're not open. They're just got their 1-2 ready, their point and counterpoint ready for you. And you're going to talk back past each other, play to your crowds, and no progress is made. Here is how you advance your cause. First of all, it's hard to have a civil discussion with people when you're stressed the fuck out. Listen, if you miss 3 days of sleep and you're worried about the bills and your kid's been sick and, you banged your knee off the table and it still hurts, and the boss blamed you for something you didn't do, and you have 1,000 other worries going on, and what you listen to or the memes you see about the other side are just irritating you. So you're primed for combat already. Now, depending on your perceived ability to confront that, you might be the flight type, which is going to shut down or flee or deny or pretend it's not happening. Or you're going to be combative and you're going to bully people, insult people, make memes, or make passive aggressive comments, and just watch no progress being made. A lot of what we've been doing from this state, even though we have good intentions, is hurting our cause. Because we want to advance the issue, but we demonize everybody else. So we're only really talking to crowds of people who like us and agree. The way you advance the issue is by getting more support. How to get more support? We'll stop demonizing the people who could potentially support you. Be cool. Give them reasonable presentation of information that might shift their views. Now, you can't greet people, have no relationship built with them, they have no trust, and all of a sudden tell them to change their ways. That's not going to work. What would happen if someone who completely disagrees with you runs over to you and says, hey, you're wrong, and you need to change your ways, and then they don't change anything, and you say, see, it doesn't work. That's what I'm talking about. If you're friendly, if you're social, if you're approachable, if you're open-minded, if you can hear different ideas, that opens the door for them to share their concerns, their fears, their ideas. And then if you know enough about your topic, you can address those concerns that they have using your more effective view or strategies. One of the things we need to do is to lower the baseline of stress that we have. Because so many of us are just taxed. So as soon as someone mentions a contrary view to one of our key issues, we're like, well, fuck them. Who do they think they are? They don't know anything. They're a bunch of idiots. Because we're all ready to fight. What we need to do is have enough in the bank to be able to tolerate some friction. But we're so stressed out that friction is liable to become fracture at any moment. Just a little contradiction is all it needs. And a lot of us are ready to shut down and we're ready to attack. So what we need to do is calm down. What we need to do is lower the baseline level of stress that we have. Now, that's not easy. I'm not claiming it's easy. But if you want a better world, we have to make it a priority to decompress. And I haven't found one technique that works for everybody. But there are many breathing modalities out there. There are journaling modalities. There are some therapeutic techniques. Some people get regular massages and make sure they sleep. Some people, they like to burn off stress with a good workout, and then they'll hit the sauna. Whatever it is, some people like to go go camping and completely tune out, stop getting the constant ping, 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 ping of notifications and stimulation. And then they can relax and arrive at a more rested place. Now, I understand not everyone can just disappear for days and go camping. That's not really something convenient for me either. That'd be difficult. I don't do that, but I have other ways that work for me. You have to find some way that's going to be effective for you, that's not going to hurt you in the long run. Many people use substances to take the edge off, so to speak, but while lowering the momentary stress, it often increases the long-term stress by taxing the body. So that's a concern to watch out for. So step one, a lot of people are using the word regulate these days. So we need to regulate. We need to find a way to lower our stress, lower our tension so that we can have a little moment of conflict and not freak out. We can easily, the best person in the world has a very difficult time presenting themselves that way. If they're hungry and tired and we're blamed things for things they didn't do and they just accidentally stubbed their toe real bad and, someone keyed their car. All of a sudden, when somebody presents a different view, maybe their natural inclination isn't to be the best and brightest and most loving version of themselves. Perhaps a more vindictive or more angry dimension of their being is going to come forth. And if we want to make the world a better place, that's not the level we need to speak and act from. We have to strive to be better. And the way we do that is having a discipline of decompression. That's step one. Along with that, I've used this example many times. Maybe you've seen it somewhere. I used to give some guidance and advice to people. I don't anymore, but when I used to, people would say, hey, I want to be so compassionate. I want to be so kind. So I meditate on compassion and I read books on compassion and I contemplate compassion. And all that's good. But when I talk to my partner, we get into fights and they know just what to say to rile me up. And I get so angry and then I say mean things and I don't want to be that person. What do I do? And I say, well, if you want to be compassionate from a practical standpoint and, your contemplation, meditation, reading, prayer, all that's very good. From a practical standpoint, how would you embody that? What would a compassionate conversation about your insecurities look like? What would a compassionate conversation about people questioning your most cherished beliefs, what would that look like? What would that sound like? Would you be calm? What would your face look like? How would you think about the person? What would you say? And often people pause and say, well, I don't know. And this is a great step because if you realize you don't know how you would act, that shows you're not prepared to behave that way. You don't even have the option. So chances are you're more likely to fall into your most repeated patterns, particularly under stress. And if you don't know what to do, you're not relaxed, yet your tension goes up. So what do you do? Well, think about some of the arguments you've had or heard that are very provoking to you. And you can go into an empty room or do it in your car while you're driving, or you could, close your eyes and imagine it. Whatever's going to work for you and rehearse hearing these issues, hearing these concerns, hearing the names being called, and address it calmly with clear information. And repeat this process over and over and over again. And pretty soon it's going to be it's going to be easier to maintain your calm when this happens because you're actually going to have options for things to say and things to do. You're not automatically going to go, okay, I don't know what's going on and have to fight. You'll have a more valid way of approaching things. Your stress is going to stay lower. And if you make a mistake, so what? It just means that there's more preparation to do. In the same way that someone in a sport might watch some of the plays from the opposing team, it could serve you to watch some of the arguments from some of the brighter and more thoughtful people on the other side of those issues. To better this show, I have a lot of material, for example. And I have, I think, 20-some books on race from authors who hate each other often. I have books on immigration, books on abortion, books on diet, books on the economy, books on every major kind of issue that's controversial, on gender issues, books on sleep habits and education and so on and so forth. And as I go on, I'm going to study each block and then do special projects on those. But the reason I bring that up is those aren't my key issues. So I don't have an enormous amount of material on all of them. But I have enough that if I want to talk about something and when I do get to do some of the projects I have in mind, I'll be able to speak to the insecurities and concerns on multiple sides. And I'll be able to present the strongest version of some of those ideas. if we just point to the dumbest person we can find on the other side and just say, see, they're all like that. Well, that just means they're not going to listen to you and there's no chance they're going to support your issues. But if you can listen to them and you can speak to their concerns and you can represent their best arguments, maybe even better than they can, that opens up a lot of doors. That makes you more approachable to the other side. That makes you kind of like a gateway into another way of thinking. And don't you want to be that? Don't you want to be someone who others feel comfortable hearing from, getting information from? You see, you could bully people, you can post memes, you can make posts about how stupid everybody is. And as much as you care about your issue, chances are that's making it worse. Because people who like you but disagree at the moment might become less inclined to hear you. And they'll say, well, obviously I don't believe what they think I said, so they're not talking to me. Or, oh, they're just misrepresenting, or they're misinformed. But if you could speak to their concerns, to their views, and do it, and then apply your counter to those, then your counter seems a lot more reasonable. Then your concerns are far more approachable. They feel like they can let their guard down, and their base level of tension will drop as well. Because you can approach them with an open heart, with good faith, with assumed positive intent, that even if they're doing very destructive things now, that maybe they're just in the greater human family, they're your confused brother or sister. And you want to listen to their concerns. And if you can answer their questions about, well, how would you deal with this then? Oh, well, if you know, and they might have a snarky comment or whatnot, but if you could tolerate that, which you can when your tension is low, when you're well informed, then you can easily address these issues. Now, if you're like a thought leader type, if you're the activist type, you might want to take this a little farther than normal. If you would go on a major bookseller and get the 100 highest rated books on your topic from different people who disagree, who are on totally different sides of the issues. And eventually, over the course of years, work through that. Well, that's going to make you way more informed than almost everybody else in the world on that topic. And that's going to empower you to speak with authority, with confidence, with calmness, and be cool when you can address the concerns each have. And you could point to, hey, we both, this matters to both of us, but you're trying to serve it one way, I'm trying to serve it another. And that takes us a long way from demonization. It takes us from the realm of hatred to a realm of seeing people as maybe misinformed. And that's an important step. But right now we're at an area in our lives where we can't even have the discussions. We're not able to talk to one another because we hate so much. And, this isn't even our fault because we're raised in a society where we're told, well, if you don't have anything nice, don't say it at all. And don't talk about politics or religion because that gets people too emotional. Well, because that came with good intent, everybody get along. But because of that, nobody's talking. We never developed the ability to be challenged on our ideas, to discuss them, to hear different views, and offer a compassionate response. Because we haven't developed this capacity as a culture, well, look where it got us now. Remember, if your side could get in charge, for how long? If you censor people, if you deplatform them, they don't go away. They become pissed. Like a partner who's not listened to in a relationship. They become angry, bitter, repressed. And when they gain power, it's going to swing way harder in the other direction. Do you think that's a way to make progress? Now, I'm going to give some practical examples. I'm not making a political statement about any of these issues. I'm just showing the meme kind of idea. So I saw a post from a very well-meaning person, very passionate about this issue. Trans women are real women. End of discussion, no questions. Well, there are tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of people around the world who've never met a trans person, who've never heard about the issues, who've only seen demonized versions, if they did. Never heard of this until a couple of years ago. Now, if you want trans women to have more acceptance in this view, if you want them to be recognized and affirmed, and guess what? You got to take questions from the people who have doubts. You got to answer kindly. And I know some people say, well, they're not kind. Why do I have to be kind? Because you want to make progress. We have to be better. We can't just keep repeating the same things that don't work over and over again. And then you'd have to listen to concerns, to questions, to doubts. And if you have suitable answers, well, guess what? That person that you were really cool with, you might have changed their mind. You might have opened them up to a whole new way of thinking. But when we talk about these tense issues, we're entirely unreasonable. Every question on every issue needs to be allowed to be talked about, allowed to be asked. Because what survives is the truth. What survives is more accurate than what does not. It helps us get focused with more precision on what's at the heart of the issues that we care about and how can we make progress. And by winning hearts and minds, you can make progress. By demonizing everybody else who's not already in your camp, it's just like those kids deciding how people are going to play in the playground. You can set up rules and regulations and terms all you want, but it's not going to change how things work. They would have to get the buy-in from the larger group. So whether you care about animal rights or the environment or abortion or immigration, race is your issue, or the economy, maybe it's gender, maybe it's education, taking care of kids, ending human trafficking, drugs, getting fentanyl out of your country, whatever your issues are. If you're super informed, if you're practiced in compassionately responding with skill to questions and doubts and even some hateful or spiteful remarks, if you have a low level of tension, guess what? You can have these conversations. You could be a demonstration of possibility for your issue. And by demonstration of possibility, I mean you're showing a new alternative of what's possible to people who currently disagree. We may think the others are evil. We may think they're wrong. We may think they headed down the wrong path. And you're not going to get to turn them around by pointing to them and calling them names. I understand. Just as perhaps you or your friends or your loved ones have had to repress your feelings before. And you're not going to let it happen again. And you're just wanting to rage. Well, it's the same thing. If you try and repress a bunch of other people through censorship, through hate speech laws, through government regulation, through authoritarian top-down rule, through lack of conversation, you don't advance the issues. You push people farther and farther to the fringes. And that's what got us here to begin with. We got to a point where we can't talk to each other. We arrived at this destination that no one wants to be at. And now so many issues are tense. We have to be better. If you really want to advance an issue, if you want to just be able to talk to family and friends, you could develop yourself to that level. If you want to become a thought leader or an activist, then there's a lot on your shoulders. If you want to change laws, if you want to recommend policies, you have to be super informed. Look up. Where have the similar policies been tried? Were they under similar conditions? What were the results? What are some of the criticisms about these policies? Have those ever been applied? What were those results? And understand, when you do that, you're training yourself to become a better person. And you see, understand that you are part of a network of people. You have friends and family and coworkers, and they're all connected to their own networks. If you're really cool, if your baseline level of tension is low, if you'll know the issues well enough to calmly respond with compassion, if you can address the concerns, well, you're a force to be reckoned with. You know how to talk, you know how to write, you know how to think, you know how to speak to people who currently disagree with you. Well then, you're well positioned to take us down a path to a better world. Whatever your level of commitment to your issues are, well, this is how you do it. You develop specialized knowledge, specialized skills, eventually specialized network. And pretty soon, you're a force. You could become a force for good. But you can't do that when you're condemning one group for the sake of another. You have to extend an olive branch and learn to look at those who you currently see as enemies with kind eyes. When you're as informed as I'm talking about, when you're as relaxed as I'm encouraging you to eventually work towards, you're simply going to have far less conflict. You're going to find yourself more capable, more loving, more full, and more fulfilled. This is the path. This is how we begin to fight for what we believe in. How do we stand up for what matters, what you really care about, without making the world worse, without pushing people farther and farther to the fringes, without encouraging even more intense pendulum swings with each election. You don't like where we're at? Or you don't like where we've been? We have to find a better way. We have to be committed to working for a future where we could get everyone on board. And you do it through calmness, through competence, through practice and rehearsal. If you would, go online. Look up some of the people who are most knowledgeable on the other side of your issues. Find their best arguments. Find them. Listen to them. Add in some hateful words. And then practice responding. And practice responding and practice responding. Imagine they're there and have the conversation as if they're there. And say, okay, that's a totally legitimate concern. But here's why that's not true. Or here's why there's more information than is being considered. And when you begin to do that and touch on people's concerns, you could show more of that compassion. You can embody more of that intention to be a good person. Not through censorship, not through deplatforming, not through demonization, not through telling people to go away, because they never go away that way. They never go away. They're all there. We can't just talk to our crowd and pretend that half the world is not there, because that's nonsense. Instead, excuse me, guys, I'm really tired today. This is the path to a better world, to a better future. It's not through closed doors, but open hearts. It's not through burnt bridges, but rebuilt ones. I look forward to a day when no matter what age, culture, language, race, gender, wherever you're from, whoever you are, we're all on board with taking the world in a better direction. We're all trying to make the world a better place. And we see each other as brothers, as sisters, as extended human family, as extensions of our very self, nearer than near. It's only when we dehumanize that destruction on the worst scale as possible. It's only when we see people as some abominable other that we can demonize them and want to shut them up and want to shut them down and close the world around them and throw them in a cell or whatever terrible thing. We need to be able to speak on the truth to one another to the best of our understanding. And we might have completely different understandings. But through conversation, we'll realize, though our views may change, though the information we've received from our world may vary, we both really care about the same things. We're just serving it in a different way. Can we dream of a world and work towards one where everyone is no longer demonized for a particular group they may belong to, whether that's a racial group or a cultural group, gender group, age group, social group, whatever. What would that look like? What would that feel like? I'm asking us to acknowledge that we're in pain and try and work through that together by extending our hands and being honest. Hey, I have this concern. This is the information I have. What's your view on that? We might be afraid. We might be busy. We might be lazy. But we have to make some level of commitment, whatever level that is, whether you're not going to speak on it, but you're just going to be more informed on the other side. That's great. If maybe you're going to one day talk to family or friends or someone who disagrees, and you're going to try and do it with a warm heart, that's a good step. All the way up to if you're trying to change the world and you want to prepare yourself to the maximum. That's a great direction to head in. So I hope you're on board with this. I hope that the message that I'm trying to convey is clear. When we spend all of our time shitting on tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people, that's hurting our cause more than advancing it. I know we care. I know you've been hurt. I'm not questioning that. I know people you care about have been hurt. But the way you guarantee more pain is to create more enemies. And the way around that is to create more friends. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Rock on, party on. This is Shawn, signing out.